Good evening, everybody. I just want to welcome you to the Shake Up with Dr. Kit. All right. And I just want to thank you for being online with me here this evening. Uh, you could have been somewhere else. You could have been doing a lot of other things, but you're here with me. And I will promise you that I will not make this a boring time for you. All right. So if you like this, if you like what you're seeing, just share, subscribe, and just follow me, okay? I promise you, if you follow me, you won't be in the dark because I got light all around me. Also, if you have any questions that you might have as we go down through this evening, just put them in the chat and I'll try to get to them as quickly as I can. Unfortunately, I was supposed to have a dialogue online this evening with somebody, a couple, but an emergency came up, and so they're not going to be able to be online with us this evening. But you are, and you're just as important, and so I'm so glad. And today, man, I got a topic for you, and I'm going to tell you, this thing is so personal. We all need it. Everybody needs some of what I got. Just like everybody drink water sometimes. This is some good water right here. Don't want to advertise to nobody, but we all need it. But I bought this at the store. What I have for you is you can't buy it at the store, but you need it. You can't rent it. You can't steal it. You can't beg it. You can't borrow it. I can keep going around and around and around and around. You can't make it in your workshop. You just can't do that. But we all need it. Everybody needs some of this. And the word, or what we're going to talk about this evening, is simply this. It's called forgiveness. Now, if you don't think that you need forgiveness or to forgive somebody, just raise your hand. See, I can't see you, but I know, but you're out there. I know ain't nobody raise their hands, But forgiveness, man, this is such a key piece in our within the self personal relationship that we have with ourselves and the interpersonal relationship that we have with other people. All right. Now, this forgiveness here, we're just going to be talking this evening, if you do it. If you do this thing we call forgiveness, it will pay you like big bucks, big emotional dividends. It will bail you out of all kinds of things. Listen, I guarantee if you do forgiveness, your credit score, your emotional credit score will be so high, it'll be off the charts. Off the chart. If you get into this forgiveness thing. So if you do it, it will pay you. If you don't do it, it will cost you. In relationships, if you forgive, it will pay you. If you don't, it will cost you. All right? And we don't want to get into this costing stuff. Okay? So let me give you some before we get into, and this is not going to be nothing clinical or definitional. We're not get into that tonight. No. We're just going to be talking just like, hey, some friends just talking around here. So let me give you some characteristics of my working definition of forgiveness. All right. I got some written down right here because I can't keep everything in my head. I just can't. My kids say my head's big, but I can't keep everything in it. Okay. So don't believe my kid. The first thing about forgiveness is it is restorative. In other words, it restores broken relationships. Now, let me tell you this here. Somebody who's very meaningful to me, had given me something and it fell on the floor and it broke in many pieces. And I picked it up and I put it in a bag because, man, I didn't know what to do. And so, of course, I told my wife what happened. And, you know, one day I came home and she had glued this thing together so meticulously, you know, she restored it. And it had, and if you went real close to it, you could see all the crack lines and all the little defects in it. But from far away, you couldn't see that. But it didn't matter to me that it had all these little cracks and stuff in it. Why? Because it was no longer, I was not restoring the thing. I was trying to restore my memory and my relationship with this person. And because this person meant so much to me, okay, I was willing to spend the time to put it back together. And so restoration here is not restoring a thing. It is restoring the relationship that I have, not with this thing that was broken, but with my memory of this person who meant so much to me. See, that's the first thing I want to tell you about forgiveness. It restores, it regenerates, it recreates. And even though there are flaws and broken stuff in the relationship, you don't need to look at those things, because if you stay looking at those things, then you're going to have a problem with forgiveness, because you're always going to get caught up in, well, I remember when that and such and the other happened. No, you want to get past it. And as a matter of fact, when you are restoring a relationship, if you are willing to accept that those cracks now become an integral part of what this thing is, an integral part of the relationship, so that every time you see that those little cracks in the relationship, it reminds you of how important the other person is and the time you took to put it back together, put the relationship back together. Okay, so that's the first thing. It restores. Okay, it reconnects. You know, we're putting all those parts together, man. And you know, it wasn't just a matter of just putting them together like this. Oh, just no. It takes time. It takes time to put all those parts together and make sure that, and I'm using this metaphor because I think it's more than metaphor, it's the truth. And to make sure that all of those parts are well integrated, it's not coming over here and going over there like that. You know, it really fits very, very well, you know, putting it back together like it was before it was broken. So it reconnects all of those parts together in your relationship. Forgiveness reconnects all of those parts that you had in place prior to the breakup and the shattering of the relationship. We're not talking about what happened, what caused this. I'm just talking about here, you know, forgiveness. So it reconnects. It really does. You know, and the other thing it does, once you reconnect this thing and you're not paying attention to the crack lines or the brokenness in this thing that I was talking about, okay, it creates a sense of healing. Oh, everybody is broken somewhere. Broken relationship, broken finger, broken bone, broken head, you know. And when we put all these biological parts back together, when we put them back together, and the healing begins to take place. Do you know how good it feels to not, so as it starts to heal, the pain starts to dissipate and get less and less and less and less and less until you don't feel the pain no more? Forgiveness is the same thing. Once you have invested in forgiveness, man, at first, you know, the pain it's got you all this, but then wide like this, you're separated. But when the healing starts to take place, it comes together, watch my hand now, watch my hand, my finger, it comes together, 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 and then it kind of interlock like this, and you are back to where you were before the breakup in the relationship. This is what, let me put it up here. This is what forgiveness is going to look like. So you're not concerned with all of this. You've been through that phase, you know, you've been through that phase. So now you're saying, hey, listen, this is what I want. I want to get back. But you know what? Getting back to this, because if you get up real close, you can see those flaws. You can say to yourself, even though I get up close and I see those flaws, I accept the flaws as a part of the reconnectiveness of this relationship. Those flaws now become a part of how important the relationship was, so that you did not, so that you say, I don't want to let it remain broken. Yeah, you're with me? Listen, if you like something about what I just said, if you got a, drop it in the chat later on, man, and we'll try to get to that. Okay. You know, um, oh, okay. So here we go. It will either cost you or you pay for it. And there's a question here, I believe. It says, should you really be forgiving to restore a relationship with a person that has abused you? Okay. So why'd you have to put that in there now? I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm going to give you an idea of how to make your life better. Will that work? Because some people just don't have the capacity to forgive somebody because of the kind of abuse and the degree of abuse. And because it hurts so deeply on the inside, it's hard for some people to just forgive that person, especially if they have to see that person and that person paid no consequence for their behavior or for what they did. Okay, so yeah, it can be very difficult to do that when they abuse you. And the thing about abuse, whether it's physical, emotional, social, spiritual, financial, whatever it is, whatever type of abuse that it was, nobody outside of the person who was abused can tell the person how they feel about being abused. It's not possible for me to know, as I'm talking about forgiveness. It's not possible for me to know because abuse is what somebody will do to you. But the abused is going through an experience, not a behavior. It is an experience. And so nobody knows your experience but you. As a matter of fact, I'm going to tell you this about experience. An experience is something that only you can have, and you can only have an experience once. You cannot have the same experience twice. You can have the same behavior, the same action, and you can say, oh my, this happened to me before. But every time you have an experience, it is a brand new experience. As a matter of fact, if I can tell you about an experience I had, what I'm doing is I'm describing the experience. I'm not telling you about the experience as I experienced it. So the question is, can you do that? Some people have the capacity to do that. The problem here, though, is, or the issue might be, what does it go, did this person grieve? How long, how deep is the pain? Where does it go? How does it reform or reconfigure your picture of yourself? And that's something else for another time, your picture of yourself. And, do you feel that you bore some responsibility for that? Is there guilt associated with this? What you're going to do with the anger that is associated with this, that when you say to yourself, I will never forgive this person. If you never forgive this person, then guess what you've done? What you do is you just put it in your emotional backpack, and it's there, and it's going to remind you every time you see this person, it's going to be there. And every time there is an anniversary of what happened, it's going to be there too. And so let's say it happened on a particular day of a month of a year. Every time that's coming up, okay, you might begin to feel a sense of anxiety as you get closer and closer and closer, and you become immobilized. You can freeze. You can start acting differently. And if people don't know what's going on with you, they think something is wrong with you when you are actually doing your own, and I'm dropping another word in here, you're grieving something that happened to you. Now, grief is something totally different, a huge subject all by itself, but you're grieving through that. And if you are angry, you can't grieve effectively when you're angry. And so you carry this thing on with you. So with a person who has abused you, in other words, if you really want to be free, if you want to be free, not from the abuse, because it's always going to be there. Historically, you can't change that. But if you want to be free from your experience of yourself going through this thing and holding on to it, if you want to be free to move on, run and jump and skip and do whatever you want to do, you got to put the load down. Now, not just say drop it like that. You work it through. You work it through. You might be able to work it through by yourself. You might be able to work it through spiritually, praying. There are a number of different ways you might be able to work it through by exercise, but make sure that you get in touch with yourself in order to work this thing through. Okay, there's a lot more to that, but I'm going to segue right back to this forgiveness thing, because this thing's going to take me like weeks to get through this thing here that we're dealing with and calling for forgiveness. And so there are a couple of levels of forgiveness, okay? One is to ask for forgiveness, and the other one is to accept forgiveness, okay? To ask for forgiveness requires a sense of humility, a sense of acknowledgement, a sense of accepting the fact that something you did, might have been wounding to somebody else. And the wounding, you know how wounds are. When you cut your skin, there is a gap. And so if you want to close the gap, if you just leave it, it's going to heal over, but the gap's going to be there. So the wounding, what you want to do is to just make sure that you are working on that part of yourself, who you are, so that the gap is, you can close that gap in this whole forgiveness process. So if you don't think that you need to ask for forgiveness, then you might need to ask yourself, whatever happened here, is it as important to me that we reconnect, or am I good just being separated from the other person? And if you think you're good being separated from the other person, then of course you won't necessarily want to ask for forgiveness, especially if you can convince yourself that you didn't do anything wrong and that the other person just needs to suck it up and go on. The quality, forgiveness is qualitative here. And the quality of the relationship that you have with the person, or had with the person prior to the fracture in the relationship, okay? If you want to go back to that, or some semblance of that, it's going to require some sense of humility, some sense of acknowledgement, some sense of accepting the fact that something you did, was responsible for that. Now, there's another piece of that I don't want to talk about tonight, but we'll talk about that in terms of who takes responsibility for what. But those of us who don't feel that we should ask for forgiveness, okay, are those of us who think that we're not wrong. And people who think like that, they're not concerned with the pain at the moment. They're just concerned with making sure that they can absolve themselves, of any pain, anything that's wrong. Because maybe they think that because they did something wrong, that they're wrong. There is a difference between doing something wrong and being wrong as a person. Nobody is wrong as a person. It's the action that is wrong. So if you can make the distinction between that, and you can go through and work that through, then asking for forgiveness means that you're asking for forgiveness about what you did, but you're very contrite because what you did is a part of who you are. And so the act of asking for forgiveness, or the thought of asking for forgiveness, comes from the fact that you are willing to say, if I don't ask for forgiveness, I cannot begin to experience the experience that I want deep in my soul. Now, you can ask somebody for forgiveness, and if they, some people will say things like, man, I ain't never, I can forgive this, I can forgive this, and I can forgive this, but I can't forgive that. The person who takes that route, okay, they are looking at forgiving behavior. What we do in forgiveness is not to forgive behavior. We forgive the person. Let's get that right. We forgive people. And when you forgive a person, you will forgive the behavior, but you can forgive the behavior without forgiving the person. And you're not attached to people. You're not attached to things, excuse me. You're attached to people, especially those people who have been so meaningful to you in your life. And there is an act of disbelief that this could happen. Well, when they come and ask you for forgiveness, if you do it, remember now, if you do it, it will pay you because of restoration. If you don't do it, it will cost you separation, restoration or separation. Okay, so that's a part of what you do. So forgiveness then is when you ask for it, there is a sense that in you that something happened and you want to make it right. That's when you ask for forgiveness. Here's the key. If you ask for forgiveness and they refuse to forgive you, the fact that you ask for forgiveness means that you should accept the fact that you are forgiven. Because forgiveness here has a spiritual component to it. And so when God forgives people, since he's the one that's forgiving, it doesn't matter what somebody else is going to say about it. They may not like you, they may not, but they don't get to have the abundance of freedom that you get, what it feels. Oh man, I thought it was going to be hard and I felt so broken. It took a long time for me to get to where I could ask for forgiveness. And then when you do that, it's almost like a ton of bricks that fell off your head, and you begin to feel so good when you can do that. So forgiveness, it's an asking for forgiveness. It's all about you when you ask for forgiveness, but it's also giving the other person who may be unforgiven an opportunity, okay, to clear their minds, their body, their soul, get all that toxin out of theirs, so that when both of you have all the toxin out the way, you can come back together and have this reunion of the self before. But it doesn't take away, though, the fact that this thing happened. And the key to successful forgiveness is the ability to see all the cracks and not make it an issue. You don't make it an issue, right? The forgiveness is when you can see all the imperfection in the other person and don't make that an issue. It's not an issue anymore for you. All right. So So you just need to be able to just go on and be good with that. Be good with that. All right. So now we're gonna go on to another part of another part of this. We're gonna go on to another part of this. So so that's asking for forgiveness. Accepting forgiveness now is something else. The same thing is true when you ask for forgiveness and the other person does not forgive you. When a person is offering you forgiveness, offering you something that's going to clear the way for both of you to have a wonderful time, reconnecting the relationship, again, the quality of the relationship will dictate what the behavioral component of forgiveness looks like. If the person is important enough to you so that you can't live a fruitful life, a good life without that person in your life, then you're going to say, I'm missing a part of me here. I'm missing a part of me. Okay. And because I'm missing a part of me, I'm not feeling like I'm a whole person. I don't feel like I'm a whole person. And I want to be a whole person. And so because I want to be a whole person, it makes sense that I connect with the other person, the other part of me that basically is outside of me, so that I can get that wholeness. So this is where forgiveness, from both either forgiving or asking for forgiveness, can is very important for both parties, okay. All right. So because there's just so much more to cover, so much more to cover. I don't know that I want to go into anything else, because if I do, then I'm going to get mired down in a whole lot of stuff, and I won't be able to kind of get out from under that, get out from under that, and I really don't want to leave you with that in your mind. Okay, so I really want to thank you. I really want to thank you for just hanging out with me this evening. Do you have any questions? Any questions that you would like to, if you do, just drop it in the chat, or just send it, to Dr. Kit Speaks, and then you can get to me that way when on the show. Okay, so just do that, and I'm so glad that you were able to stay with me this evening. Okay, so if you like what happened this evening, don't forget to share it. Don't forget to like it. Okay, and just tell your folks about it. Don't just share it technologically. Just say, hey man, you need to listen to this thing, because next week I'm going to have guests on, but in some of the upcoming weeks I will continue this right where I left off in terms of forgiveness. So I will see you again on next week at the Shake Up with Dr. Kit. All right. Thank you so much, and have yourself a wonderful night. And I will see you next week where the Shake Up will continue. Okay. Bye-bye.